Well, funny enough, for someone who now presents on a stage for a living, I was actually mortally shy. Probably the greatest issue I had to overcome personally was just the sense of being such a painful introvert. Toward the end of my high school career, a group called Toastmasters International, which is a public speaking and leadership body, conducted a youth leadership course within my school. And I discovered something wonderful about the entire thing, which was as an introvert, there's something deeply gratifying about being able to go backstage where it's quiet, plan, prepare, and put together the best version of yourself and the most polished version of your own thoughts, and then to step onto a stage and be able to deliver that version of yourself. And I found that over the years, slowly but surely, this whole thing of being able to stand on a stage and receiving good feedback from an audience drew me out of my shell and actually helped me to become a much more confident person. It's now what I do for a living. I write books and I speak on the topic of my books. Starting out high school level, I actually always wanted to be a writer. In fact, I took typing class at school, and I can remember that day one in high school, first day of typing class, I looked around, and to my great horror, I realized I was the only boy. But of course, then you hit kind of 12, 13 years of age, and things start to change, and you look around and you go, huh, I'm the only boy. So after that, I then spent some 5 years doing typing class, and I was able to, and still am able to, type as fast as I can think or speak. And that's made a huge difference to me. I'm able to think more clearly when I write my books and get them done faster simply as a result of that. It takes away a lot of the mental strain just having that mechanical skill in place. So today what I do is I write business books and books on wealth, and I stand on a stage and I speak about them, and the two link together. It works wonderfully in terms of income streams because the books sell in stores. I do the audio recording of my own books and they sell all around the world. And as a result of reading the books, people will say, would you come and speak at our conference? And then as a result of speaking at the conference, you sell more books. So a wonderful self-perpetuating business. And it's something that I just enjoy immensely because you would think that being a business writer would be an incredibly boring thing to do. In fact, it's not. It is deeply personal. It's all about storytelling. It's all about strategy. And I then get to stand up on a stage and share these insights and ideas with the world. There's something amazing about meeting someone who attended a conference, say, a few years ago, who then comes up to you and says, I tried this idea in my life and it has had X result for my family, for my business, and it's made me wealthier. There's something very deeply gratifying about that. But no, I wasn't even aware that there was such a thing as a paid professional speaker fresh out of high school. Whoever tells you that? And it's actually remarkable from the perspective of choosing an entrepreneurial career and setting yourself on the path to wealth. It's amazing what we're not told about what can work. I mean, for example, if you go and look at Forbes magazine and you flip to the third highest earning posthumous celebrity, which is a very fancy way of saying the third richest famous dead guy, after Michael Jackson and Elvis, who always kind of vie for first and second place, you will come across the name Charles M. Schulz. Now, Charles M. Schulz is the cartoonist who drew Peanuts, Charlie Brown. And whoever tells you that you could become the third wealthiest celebrity posthumous earner drawing a 3-panel comic strip? Let me walk you through his day. He spent 1 hour drawing a 3-panel comic strip and an hour answering mail, and we're done. That's it. That was his entire working day. But of course, he capitalized on this idea of creating it once and selling it multiple times over. He would draw that comic strip once and then it would sell all over the world multiple times to multiple newspapers and magazines. And then, of course, at the end of every year, they'd take all of the cartoons for that year, bind them in a book and sell them in 10,000 stores around the world. And do that for 50 years, you become one of the wealthiest people who's ever lived. So this is one of the things that interests me about what can make you wealthy, the career paths available to you. You know, when we talk about having your own business and becoming an entrepreneur, we often get bogged down in this idea that it must be a serious corporate business. Well, that's just a matter of flavor or preference. You could be a cartoonist, you could speak on stages, you could tell stories or write books for a living. The point is, do you benefit from every sale made? If so, you're an entrepreneur and you are your own boss. Yes, that's right. So the idea of positioning yourself as an expert, I sum it up as saying it's like becoming the Schwarzenegger of bodybuilding, the Oprah of TV, the Clarkson of cars, the Nigella Lawson of food. How do you become that top iconic name in your industry on purpose? And there are many things that we could talk about in order to do that intentionally from the word go. Let's start with the basic formula for being an expert, because I think most people miss this one. You have to have three things working together. They are the knowledge, but to that you must add the personality and the publicity. So knowledge is the one everyone thinks of when we think of an expert. We think of a person who has the qualifications, a person who has the expertise, someone who has the competence. Now, while that is immensely important, it's not the full mix for becoming like a Clarkson of cars or a Branson of business or an Oprah of television. To become one of those top names, you need the knowledge and you need that human personality. You need that charisma, that public presence. And that also implies the third one, which is publicity. You have to be seen in public. You have to become a face and a voice in the public consciousness. Now that terrifies a lot of people, because if you're someone like me starting off and you're very introverted, under-assertive, you don't want to stand up on a stage and be a loud, brash Jeremy Clarkson of a person, let's take a different example. You could become more like, let's say in the world of food and Nigella Lawson, Jamie Oliver. Jamie Oliver is not a big, loud, brash, over-the-top personality. He's a quiet, down-to-earth, bloke-next-door kind of person. But the key to that one is, we know his face, we've heard his voice. And he holds an interesting record. One of his books, it was a Christmas book, when it was launched, became the fastest selling book in all of human history. Now, that's not just based on the expertise within his recipes. That's not going to become the best-selling book of all time. That's based on our love of him, our trust in him, the sense of a personality. So you actually have to put yourself forward in addition to your knowledge. And that entails bringing a little humor, a little drama, a little storytelling, which can mean anything. You could be as big, bold, and brash as a Jeremy Clarkson, or you might be someone's mate in the way that Jamie Oliver is. But you must bring that personality. Take Nigella Lawson as another example. She often expresses the idea that her show is based around this concept of the Italian goddess. There's something sort of sensual about what she does. And there again, it's not just the recipes. She's not necessarily the most technically qualified chef on earth. That's not where it's at. It's about the personality she brings to it and how she helps people to live out a dream, a fantasy, a lifestyle, become who they want to be. So starting off, that would be my initial advice, is to understand it's not just about the technical proficiency, it's also about the personality. Then beyond that, I would also tend to say, don't try to teach what you don't know. A lot of young, aspiring speakers, and experts in my world in particular, will make the mistake of thinking that they have to be the ultimate guru of all things. That at the age of 22, they have to stand up on a stage and tell people about their Porsche and the multinational company that they turned around and how they climbed a mountain and how everything they do is absolutely perfect. And it's not true and it's not necessary. For starters, an older audience, a more sophisticated audience, will see through that in 30 seconds flat. But secondly, it's not necessary. You build up expertise in your area and then have fun with yourself. If there's something you don't know, poke fun at yourself, make humor at your own expense. It's absolutely acceptable. In fact, it's not only acceptable, it's endearing. It's actually wonderful when you see a little humanity in a person that you admire, a person with high levels of technical skill. And a final thought for the young expert starting out is to develop high levels of skill in what we will call the delivery medium. So, for example, can you speak in public? Forbes magazine lists public speaking as the single highest return skill in which you can invest. So if you're looking for one skill above all others that will help you to get ahead, get promoted, become wealthier, do well in positioning yourself as an entrepreneur, an expert, public speaking is the top of that list. The ability to stand in front of people, be charismatic, deliver a message, make ideas come alive is immensely powerful. Then the skill of writing is incredibly important too. When Jeremy Clarkson got himself fired off of Top Gear, and just prior to starting the new show with Amazon, He was asked to give a critique of the continued version of Top Gear, and he said, you know, the big problem with it is when you watch the credits, it never says written by. And he says what made the show, the previous show, come alive was not just the three buffoons playing together. He says it was the excellent writing in the background. And that was a very surprising insight. Jeremy Clarkson is, for someone who positions himself as such a kind of a public buffoon, is a highly intelligent man with immensely highly developed writing skills. And he says that's the key to his success. Ah, yes, mindset. Yeah, absolutely. A couple of my books, out of the, I think it's going on 9 now, books with Penguin, 2 of them are on wealth. And most of the content in the wealth books is about mindset. Just for example, it turns out that the number one determinant of your upward or downward mobility financially is your own work ethic. How seriously do you take things? Your mindset really sets you on the path one way or the other. And simply developing that sense that it's up to you, you are in charge, you can make it happen, and you should make it happen, will make all the world of difference to your trajectory. I'm not very big on victimization mindset, the kind of attitude that says, well, here's my reason why I can't. Here's my excuse, now honor it. Everyone has excuses, everyone has hardships, everyone has obstacles they have to overcome. The excuse, the hardship, the obstacle is not the interesting part of your story. The interesting part is what you do in response to it. Imagine the tragedy of getting to the end of your story and handing in your excuse and saying, here's why I didn't. Well, there's a great deal of interesting study on the phenomenon of talent, and great books about it, like Carol Dweck's Mindset, a couple of others that all agree on the basic science underpinning it. And that really is to say that talent has a basic formula. You don't really have to understand the science of it, you more have to get what you can do with that formula. And the formula goes, talent equals, number 1, yearning. Yearning is the love of the thing. It's the desire for it. It's the initial motivation, the ignition, that spark that says, wow, I want to be like that. I want to be this man, this woman. I see this incredible, interesting, romantic, bright future as a result of that skill. So yearning is step number 1. Without the yearning, we simply don't develop talent. We don't have the sticking power to actually activate it and make it come alive. So yearning is step number 1. But it's insufficient on its own. To yearning, you have to add input. Input is the how-to knowledge, and input comes in 2 forms. There is self-taught and there is coaching. Both are important, but you can only go so far with the self-taught side of things. So say, for example, arbitrary example, you wanted to be a skateboarder. You could learn a certain amount simply by watching videos, by watching others, and by thinking your way through it, or by reading how to do it. But at some point, you're going to need someone else to say, you're doing this wrong, try that. And that makes the world of difference. In public speaking, for example, I'm a member of a Toastmasters club, and they follow that formula. You will have the manual, and you read the manual. It says, do this with your arms, do that with your voice, structure your message in the following way. And that's the input that I get in for myself. But at some point, I'm going to have to stand up in front of an audience with knowledgeable, experienced presenters, and they're going to have to say, you're doing this right, you're doing that wrong, tweak the following. And that makes a massive difference. So, yearning plus input plus deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is the long, hard slog. And the reality of this one is it is not fun, it is difficult, it's the part where you do a thing over and over and over again, even when you yourself have lost interest, because you see the benefit for the long term. So probably the biggest thing that separates and differentiates high-level, global-level performers from those who merely start with the longing, get the input and stop, is the ability to sustain drudgery. Can you just keep at it when it's boring? So what are we looking at so far? It's the yearning, it's the input, it's the deliberate practice over hours and hours and hours, and finally it is the desire to keep on pushing yourself. So for example, if you hit a talent plateau, do you look for ways to make it hard again? Simple example of this one. If you have learnt to drive, you know that the first time you try it, it is all-consuming in the sense that you have to concentrate on everything you do. After you've done it for even a couple of months, you find that you can drive to a place and have very little memory of doing so. What's happened there is that it has become easy and automatic. You've hit a talent cap. Now what you have to do is you have to make it hard again. You have to do something that forces you to concentrate. You have to push yourself beyond your natural boundaries. And that might mean something like taking your car to a parking lot and practicing alley docking or parallel parking if you don't normally do that. Going to a racetrack and learning drifting. Whatever makes you consciously think about it again starts to push that talent potential. I think the advice that I would give, and this is something that I wish someone had told me earlier on, is just as to how many things you can do in order to build a successful career, a satisfying life, and to become immensely wealthy. Become a cartoonist, become a writer, become a voiceover artist, whoever tells you you can do these things. I was staggered to find toward the end of last year, one of my videos on YouTube went viral, and I was able to monetize the YouTube channel, and to my great surprise, that's bringing in an income. There are a group of kids in the US who have a channel called Dude Perfect, in which they go around throwing basketballs into hoops in different and creative ways, and they have 55 million subscribers. I mean, that's making them stinkingly wealthy, shooting hoops. So it's amazing what can work. And there are a few basic concepts around wealth that I wish people had taught me when I was young. And that has become the basis of my books like Is Your Thinking Keeping You Poor and Poverty Proof. Ideas about how to generate wealth, how to simple investment ideas, and even simple things like Robert Kiyosaki's concept of how do you know if you're getting richer? Well, if more is coming in than going out, you're getting richer. If more is going out than coming in, you're getting poorer. Simple orienting ideas around wealth like that, which once you know them, make a great difference to your behavior and to how you pursue your life and your dreams.